We have two new movies on the docket here today, Iron Lung and Send Help. I'm going to be reviewing both of them in this format. So the first movie we're going to be talking about here today is Iron Lung, self-produced, self-written, edited, directed, and starring Markiplier. We obviously all know who Markiplier is. He is one of the pillars of the YouTube community. He has been in our lives for the better part of 15 years now, and while I've never really been super into his content, I've always appreciated his presence. He kind of seems like the best guy out of all of those like initial Let's Play watching whatever. I definitely prefer his stuff over like Jacksepticeye or any of that nonsense. So to see him break into the world of filmmaking was very interesting. It made a little bit of sense to me. Like he felt like the kind of creator that would do something like this. To see someone who is, yes, a titan in his own industry, but not a part of the Hollywood sphere, get to make this high profile of a film and have it released widely in theaters is very inspiring. Not unlike what we got last year with Chris Stuckman's Shelby Oaks, it's very inspiring again to see not necessarily a civilian, but someone who doesn't necessarily have that initial pull of being in the industry be able to get a film like this made. And even without Markiplier's involvement, I would have been intrigued by this movie anyway, because the source material for Iron Lung is incredibly rich and is one of the better horror games that I've played in a really long time. The entire premise of The Quiet Rapture and the reason why they're on the Blood Moon and yada 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 is all very intriguing to me. And to bring that kind of horror storytelling to the big screen is something I've been desperately clamoring for a while now. And I have to say, this movie mostly sticks the landing. Don't get me wrong, it has a plethora of issues that I could nitpick and kind of delve into that sour your overall experience of the film, but I came out pretty satisfied with the product that we were given. For having little to no experience in these multitude of roles, Markiplier really excels and shows a lot of potential as a filmmaker. The film has a distinct visual language. It has a certain pace and rhythm that feels unique to his own directorial voice. The editing, while I'll get into that a little bit later, you know, it stands out. None of it fades into the background, and I think that is where a lot of amateur or first-time filmmakers can get lost in, is relying on cliche and not having a distinct voice. That is not something that you can hold against this film or Markiplier. He takes some ambitious strides, especially towards the end of the movie, and while they don't all land with an absolute perfect 10 out of 10, I do think that his ideas and the scope in which he's able to think about the film really bodes well for if he ever wants to dive back into a project. I want to commend a lot of the special effects here because they are fantastic. I think that not over-relying on digital stuff and mostly making the movie with prosthetics and real sets was a great idea. It's a one-location film, and I think that the location that they are in feels very lived in, very alive, and I think that the horror of the movie, amped up to 11 because we get to see, more real visuals. It almost adds to the charm of the film that everything looks a little bit more broken down, it looks a little bit more rusted because of the cheaper budget. Where Iron Lung kind of falters for me, though, is in the pacing, the edit, and the length, especially. My God, this film felt like 4 hours. I really didn't love the repetition. I think that this movie should have been tightened up quite a bit. If this was like 90 minutes, even hour 45, a lot of the scenes were condensed and not repeating themselves over and over and over again. This would have made for a much brisker and more satisfying experience. And as a result of that very choppy pacing, I do have to criticize the editing here. I just think that it has no flow. There is no sense of direction. It just is kind of moving from scene to scene a little bit aimlessly. Again, I don't think narratively the film falters in that way. I actually think it does a pretty good job of keeping you intrigued, adding new ideas to the fold, and giving you a reason to keep paying attention even though it is a one-location film that mostly relies on the acting of Markiplier. Where I think the editing falters is not giving us much to chew on. I think that the edit is very stale, it's very listless, and if it was just tightened up quite a bit more and a lot of the runtime was knocked down to, again, 90 minutes, hour 45, this would have been a much tighter product. Also, Markiplier in the lead role is fine. Like, he's okay, he's not bad, but he definitely isn't there when it comes to charisma or charm or really taking over a film like this. So I don't want to harp on his performance too much, but it definitely wasn't helping the film, nor was it really hurting it either. Overall though, I was very impressed with what Markiplier was able to accomplish with this movie. I think that moving forward, we need to see more passion projects like this. I like that this stuff is making money. I like that more people are interested in this kind of thing because it breeds new ideas. It breaks the chain of the studio slop and getting the same thing over and over again. You know, people complain about movies being very homogenous nowadays. Supporting a film like Iron Lung is exactly how we get new ideas on the big screen. So with that all being said, I did really like it. It's very flawed and kind of a mess in places, but overall I want to give it a very strong 3 out of 5. Iron Lung was a very enjoyable experience and I'm very glad that it exists. Moving on to Send Help, this is the new Sam Raimi film, which kind of came out of nowhere. I remember seeing the trailers for Send Help way back and seeing that it was being released in January. I'm like, okay, here we go. This is another put it out. We know it's garbage, but we have to retain the license to this film. So, you know, might as well cut our losses now and just shit it out there. But then I saw Sam Raimi's name attached to it and I went, oh, okay. That's interesting. And the more I learned about it, the more people talked it up, I became very excited for this film. Despite the pretty wonky marketing and the overall stench of January, you know, just being an absolute dead zone for film and this kind of premise being overdone, I was hopeful for this movie. Just because of Sam Raimi, I knew we were getting something at the very least interesting. And thankfully, Send Help isn't just interesting, it is the best that Sam Raimi has been in over a decade. It harkens back to a time when these mid-budget thrillers that don't take themselves too seriously could actually be pretty well made. Effort and care can be put behind these movies. Who would have thought? After years and years and years of being just bombarded by low-budget, strong on-premise but shit in execution thrillers, you guys have no idea how refreshing it is to have a movie like Send Help. A movie that isn't afraid to not take itself seriously, that isn't afraid to take risks, that isn't afraid to go the extra mile and genuinely entertain you while not being slop. Because is this the smartest movie in the world? No. Is it trying to be? Absolutely not. And how many times have you heard that and final product of the film actually being worthwhile? Both Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien are having a blast here. They work so well off of each other and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of it was improvised because it doesn't necessarily flow like a traditional narrative and I think that adds to the charm of their relationship. It felt like they were both trying to out-crazy each other and it ends up culminating in this relationship that feels so out of left field and oddball, but one that you cannot keep your eyes away from. Especially Rachel McAdams, I really want to commend what she's doing in this film because she is just having a blast. She is exuberating positive energy throughout the film. And then when her character starts to delve into the, you know, darker side of her psyche, it makes it that much more interesting and that much more fun to follow because she is such a bright and bubbly personality, but to see her do these heinous things was just a very fun juxtaposition. And that's not to take away from Dylan O'Brien's doing here. I really liked his turn as like a tech bro guy that is just the absolute worst at every single turn. He's trying to do whatever he can to leave the situation and he does not realize that, you know, he wouldn't be alive without Rachel McAdams' character. I thought that was a very fun dichotomy. I just think that what Rachel McAdams was doing was a little bit more noteworthy. Although most of the credit here does have to go to Sam Raimi because my God, does he do this kind of pulpy film the best out of pretty much any working director. I was reminded of how much I enjoy stuff like Drag Me to Hell or Simple Plan because he knows how to make trashy fun. He knows when to turn the dial up, he knows when to not take himself too seriously, but he also knows when to turn on the personality, when to turn on his usual visual cues, and when to really go for it in places. And as a result, we get one of the most exhilarating theater experiences I've had in a really long time, especially in January. I don't know what it was about last January, but we got this film, Iron Lung, Bone Temple from earlier, which is like a legitimately fantastic film. This January was honestly the best I've covered maybe since I've started doing this channel. But getting back to Send Help, this is a movie that I feel like audiences are kind of clamoring. Obviously, not everyone wants to go see the Marty Supremes of the world. Not everybody wants to go see the Sentimental Values, the Die My Loves. Not everybody wants to be challenged. However, they do want to see good cinema. They don't just want to mindlessly turn their brain off and go watch garbage. So it is very important that these middle-of-the-road movies that, you know, maybe aren't the most original thing in the world, aren't, again, taking themselves too seriously. I feel like I've said that 9,000 times in this review. These kinds of movies, it is very important for studios to put the amount of effort that is put into Send Help, if that makes sense. Like, it is very important for these movies to also be good, because this is the kind of thing that gets casual audiences into the theaters and stops the whole conversation of, oh, cinema's dying, people don't care about the movies anymore, yada, yada, yada. No, they do, but they just don't want to see shit. And when you have stuff like Send Help, which is, I think, doing pretty well at the box office, it is a very positive sign going forward, because if these films can succeed, then we can get more of the Marty Supremes, the Sentimental Values, and the Die My Loves of the world. You know, we get that more experimental stuff when this kind of stuff succeeds with general audiences. And with Send Help, I think it's going to make both crowds incredibly happy. People who are been, like myself, who have been Raimi fans for, you know, since the Evil Dead days, and obviously I wasn't alive then, but I am a huge Sam Raimi fan, you know, and appreciate what his work has meant for independent filmmaking in general. And then it can also satisfy the people that just want to be entertained for an hour and a half, that just want to watch something that they can get lost in, but is also quality, that is also made with care. So I really want to commend Send Help. Again, not a perfect movie. It's kind of a mess narratively. They get a little too overly ambitious in the middle of the film, and then it ends up not really working out. However, I do really enjoy this movie. I think it's going to be a necessary shot in the arm that 2026 really needed, because, you know, 2025 was a major downturn for cinema, especially popular blockbuster stuff. So as we're getting more successful stuff like this that is working, that is winning audiences over, we are going to, you know, that's going to have positive effects for everyone. I'm going to give Send Help a strong 3.5 out of 5 for that reason. Thank you for watching that little rant there at the end. I know that didn't necessarily have anything to do with Send Help, but I thought it was necessary to point out because, again, these kinds of movies are also necessary. And the fact that we're seeing more quality ones, we're seeing ones that have effort pumped into them, is a very, very optimistic sign, in my opinion. But what did you guys think of Iron Lung and Send Help? Please let me know in the comments down below. As for the channel, we're going to be doing not something different, but I'm just going to forego the next roundup review, because all of those movies I'm going to be talking about in my top 10 worst and best lists anyway. So just going to get those out to you guys instead. The worst list is filmed, just need to edit it, all that good stuff, and then Cam and I will be doing the best of the year list, and then we can wash our hands fully of 2025. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe if you are new here. Share it to your friends. Share it to people who you know in your life that love movies, and get the discussion going. Yeah, I will see you with the next video. Thank you guys so much.